One thing I do love about these old Saturn fighting games is their intros. They're just so flashy. And these big bold sprites that sort of flash on the screen with the awesome starting music. For the most part, you'd already picked out which character you wanted to play as. Marvel superheroes! Yeah, so this is another one from the vault, if you want. So when I first got my recording equipment, I was testing how to record for Sega Saturn, and I did a Psylocke video ages ago, and I haven't watched it back. So we're going to take a look at it today. What am I doing here? Just playing around with the settings. Standard difficulty, of course. And I love this character select screen. It's so good. Just bursting out of the building and then just sort of shooting down into this flashy versus screen. Love it. Really, really cool. And these levels, man. Oh, I loved this game when I first got it. These like hugely detailed backgrounds and levels. So, I tend to stick with one character in these fighting games, and my character of choice is Psylocke. I just dizzied Blackheart there. And Psylocke's a confusing character, let me tell you. looking up her history. But yeah, I like to tell a little bit of history about characters that I pick on Character Select. So Psylocke's original name was Betsy Palmer, and she was a side character for the comic book Captain Britain. I didn't actually read it growing up. It was a bit before my time, really. But she was getting more and more popularity as she had grown. But Psylocke suffered from a classic comic book issues of constant different lead writers and cancellations and rewrites. And she went from being a fighter pilot to a model to like a secret agent for the government because of her psychic powers. She was kidnapped and brainwashed and used in tournaments, all sorts, and they just never really sort of finished off her story. So her story is very convoluted, and I think a lot of the writers felt the same way because they kept they tried to make it all make sense for the long-term readers, but also because she was never in one comic, she was constantly being passed around to different comics. They tried to make it more coherent. But I think in doing so they made it even more complicated because she was killed off, and then her mind was brought back and placed inside an Asian ninja of a Marvel villain called the Hand, who was trying to save, I don't know if it's a girlfriend or wife, and sort of made two characters, put the brain of Betsy Palmer into Psylocke, this body of this Asian warrior, and they became Psylocke, and that's where she got her trademark look and why she's Asian, but she's not. She's actually British, and so confident. I think the thing about this is a classic example of when you need to retcon something. I love how the writers of comic books try and make everything make sense. They try and respect their readers and say, look, you haven't wasted your money. We're not retconning. You don't have to throw those comic books away. We're going to make it make sense. And because of all the different writers and the visions they had, and then those visions get cut short for X amount of reasons, Psylocke is a perfect example of how that could possibly go not wrong, but really complicated. And really, she is the kind of character that would benefit more than anybody on a retcon, and just keep it simple. She's a badass ninja with psychic powers, and she's a mutant that sometimes fights with the X-Men, and sometimes she doesn't. You know, she's a bit of a wild card. But I first came across this character in this game, and I really enjoyed her playstyle. She chose a lot of the faster characters back then, and she was certainly the fastest in this game. Look at the size of Juggernaut. Just take that in for a second. These pixels are massive. But yeah, finishing up on the history of, I think, of Days Juggernaut there. Yeah, again, just massive combos. Love it. Just to finish up the history on Psylocke, when it comes to sort of retconning storylines and stuff, I think sometimes you just need to cut your losses and stop trying to make sense of all these puzzle pieces that don't fit together. And that's where I really liked the New 52 for DC, where I could finally get into comic books without having to know all this complicated history of the character, and I really appreciate that, and I think especially with Psylocke, she'd benefit from that. Perfect! I'm not doing too bad there, Bill. Well done. Well done. I can see why you kept this footage now. Yeah. So this game was my first fighting game on the Sega Saturn. I was very excited to get my Sega Saturn after experiencing it with my friend Dragan, which I've mentioned on several occasions now for introducing me to the Saturn. Just as it was closing down and sort of turning in, people going onto the Dreamcast. And I picked this up along with Street Fighter Alpha 2, but I played, the front cover of this game is really eye-catching, and I really like the look of it. Which kid growing up didn't like Marvel superheroes and Spider-Man and stuff. So this is one of my first fighting games, and I didn't know back then, but it was a really nice sort of window into all the versus games. X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel versus Capcom, and what I learned in this game kind of paved the way for me to get to good to a certain degree for all the other games. So I'll always look fondly back on this game and appreciate the learning process that I had, because no one played them. We didn't have a line. It was me just playing the single player over and over and over again, the arcade mode with different characters. So I really got to know a lot of these characters quite well. And it was just the bold sprites, the commentator and everything. After coming off the Super Nintendo and playing fighting games, I really was wowed by these graphics. And you could get a cartridge that you could slot into the back of the Sega Saturn to add extra frames. I never really noticed too much. In fact, I think it slowed the game down for me in some ways. I missed there, Psylocke, unlucky. But some of the bigger characters and levels got more frames of animation, which a lot of people like. I didn't really bother that much. I didn't think it was that much of a big deal. But yeah, solid graphics regardless. Is that it for Spider-Man? Oh no, so it's only the second round. I used to try to play as Spider-Man, but his defense was not great, and I don't know. I never really got on with him. I used to think Spider-Man was my favourite character, but I guess playing the versus games put me off him because I was just never any good with him, and I just found so many other better characters. But that's the joy of fighting games, is that you can pick up a game like this, expect to like one character, then you end up finding loads of others. As using the Power Infinity Gem to get multiple Spider-Mans. Not having any of that Spider-Man. Flip kicks. Yeah, it's just the Marvel games, the Versus series, are known for their air combos. Oh, I'm going to catch him? No, too quick. That was always quite cool, because a lot of fighting games were very grounded up until this franchise, where you could start doing multiple air combos. I am determined to hit that move, and I'm missing every time. Just finish him off. There you go. Like ending a round in a throw. It's just when they're flying off into the distance and sort of go, "Argh!" and then they hit the ground. It's always quite satisfying. So, Right, so Marvel superheroes and its mechanics. I suppose I better talk a bit about that as well. This was, like I said, my first introduction into the Versus series. It added a lot of extra. You know, a lot of people say fighting games are all the same. They are very different, and especially if you play a lot of them like I do, you will find things very different. This one was particularly known. Oh, I love this theme song, Captain America. Awesome. This one was particularly known for its speed. The Versus series Marvel games, they made a lot of the combinations easier, I believe. I haven't got any evidence to suggest that, but it just makes sense to me that what was, sliding your thumb from down to forward twice and then pressing punch for a super combo, with giant fireballs and stuff. They made them easier by doing down forward once and then pressing both punch buttons, demonstrated right there. So it made the combinations a lot faster. The gameplay was sped up and it was a lot quicker to play. You had the giant jumps where you press down and up and you fly into the air and have like air exchanges. Special moves were a lot more flashy. Later on, filling the entire screen with projectiles rather than just small fireballs. It was just a massive showpiece of pixel engineering that Capcom did with these games, and it just looked damn pretty. It's so good. And in this particular game, they used the Infinity Gems. So you'll see them at the bottom of the screen there. Now Captain America just lobbed his shield at my face. And they all... they all have different abilities like they do in the movie, and each character, when they use them, use the Infinity Gem, they have different abilities as well. Faster characters tend to get like duplicates and shadows of themselves. You saw Spider-Man. There's your super armor. So that things like that means that if you hit Captain America mid-hit, he won't flinch, and his hit will continue to hit you. So you could use those. If you don't use them, you get more points, which I tend to do because when you're playing this game by yourself and you don't have many friends to play them with, you go for the high score, and getting a high score meant no Infinity Gems for me. That's a nice little combo from Captain America. The computers sometimes could be really cheap on these games, but also really stupid, as he saw that coming from a mile away. He is giving me all kinds of problems. There's each gem has its own abilities. You get life back, you can get more armor, more power, and sometimes it's not just a case of use a power gem and it hit you and you take double damage. Sometimes you get duplicates like you saw with Spider-Man in the previous match. It has slightly different effects, so each gem you use could really sort of change it. That was a nice little combo there. I never noticed this growing up, but those little icons that kept flashing and changing the characters' facial expressions when they get hit, I always thought that was a bit silly. I'm kind of glad they dropped that in the later games. There you go, Captain America, you pain in the ass. Just put you down. So why do I like Psylocke in this game? Psylocke is very quick, I've always said, but she's also... I guess it's just from playing the one-player games so much. Because especially people like Magneto over here, because the characters in this game, the AI, they can get real cheap. Psylocke allowed me to use moves that would trick the AI. So I could teleport behind them. She has a teleport where she appears from all four corners, depending on what button you press. You can teleport from behind them. And also, I like to play a very, as I said in previous videos, high, medium, low kind of guess what I'm going to go match, rather than massive, infinite combos that do loads of damage. You can't really get away with that on this game, especially against the computer, because if they're going to block, they're going to block, and you can't necessarily trick them. So with Psylocke, as you saw there, that spin dagger move, you can, every time you hit somebody, you could definitely land the rest of those that spin to do some major damage on the combo. So you'd hit a few hits and then you trigger that spin knife attack, and you could get more damage off the back of things. And I don't know, the computer just didn't seem to block it as much as I hoped. I am determined to hit that move, and every time I've gone with it, I've done it far too early. But yeah, I liked Psylocke's range as well. So she hurts. Perfect example. You can see like the psychic energy around her attacks, and like she can form daggers on the end of her wrists like that. It gives her extra range on her blows. I always thought that was pretty cool anyway, but again, against the computer, that just gave you this extra range. So mid-range is really good. Long range with her fireball and projectiles and teleport, she's really good. And close range with those spins is she also really good. She has plenty of options. And I don't think the computer was quite programmed quite as well to deal with her, as you can see as some of the other characters. There's some specials that you can activate, and that would have worked and knocked you out of them. But with Psylocke, you just sort of dance around projectiles and things. She also has this really cool kick. I don't know if I'm going to show it here, but she can do a kick, and then if you hold forward or back, you'd go behind the character or below them. Oh, sorry, away from them. Massive combo damage there. So you can close difference really easily. Yeah, they're like that kick there. So you go behind them, and again the computer tries to block the kick, but it's maybe almost not programmed to deal with the roll afterwards. So you could generally get behind them and get attacks that way. So she just had loads of ways of opening up the computer AI. So that's why I just tended to levitate towards her as a playable character, because she just got me the highest scores all the time. Oh, Wolverine. This is an awesome level as well. See, so where most people would go with characters like Wolverine and Spider-Man, maybe even Captain America, maybe not so much back then. I just liked Psylocke because she wasn't a one-trick pony. She had everything that you could deal with every character in the roster, and that's what you needed when I was going for high scores on this game. Not so much against, real. I've not really had too much practice using her in real situations against human opponents. And Wolverine is a real pain because he's relentless. No, missed. It really annoyed me about some of these versus games where they just program the AI to constantly block in midair and always block when they get off the floor. No, that was stupid. I definitely should have blocked that. Yeah, it just means that some combos which would definitely work on humans would always miss on the computer. See, I managed how to close the distance there. So I was throwing fireballs, and I could have cheesed it forever, and the computer just would have stood there, and I could have got the run the clock down. But you can dash forward with that kick and close some distance, or use the teleport, which I don't think I've done yet. Actually, I don't think I've used the teleport too often. The weirdest thing with Psylocke, she just had so many different strange kicks and punches though. So although you had that medium range, like nothing. If it was quick, it was very quick, and it was very. I love that. So you do a special and just keep hammering with her fierce attacks. And look at that! I love the transitions on some of these levels where you started on a bridge. Go into the second round, the bridges start breaking apart, you fall into the river and you're going down some rapids. They just are not inventive with the levels these days. Can you imagine what these levels would be like if they actually did them in the nowadays levels? The nowadays fighting games. Just missing so many great opportunities to do some great levels. See, again, why did the computer not block that? They'd block every other attack I'd do, but that special, for whatever reason, just always landed. I just don't think they programmed them very well against Psylocke. Yeah, I was talking about her punches and kicks. Her kicks are very kind of flashy, and only hit in certain hitboxes are only in certain ways. So it's always it's never a straight punch or kick. That's got her again. Got him again. It was never kind of like a straight kick or anything, unless it was a medium or light, and then you got a quick retort. So unless you were hammering that button to get a combo, that the opponent was going to come straight back at you. Psylocke also has multiple jumps in midair. Again, I keep saying this, but the computer just didn't know how to deal with that. I think they're so used to having it just the bridge falls off with the body of your opponent, and they fall to the fishes. Great, love it. Yeah, they're programmed to deal with maybe 1 or 2 jumps, but because Psylocke has 3 mid-air jumps, you again could get behind the computer and they just wouldn't block that 3rd jump. It's almost like they didn't know it was coming. Dr. Doom. Probably for anyone who knows anything about Marvel games, Dr. Doom is often credited as being the one who's broken. Because of the moves. He's a boss character, this is the game he was the boss character in, and using him in a real slot-life situation, a lot of people consider him to be very top tier, and you probably will see why in this. And they do try to balance him, but those moves he's got, they were never designed originally to be fair as such. So yeah, I always liked Psylocke. I always went back to Psylocke because she was just a lot of fun to play as. Her specials were very quick and powerful. When you did hit someone, you hit them multiple times. And I did constantly come back to her to get those high scores, and that was just a result of it. I'd love to play, or I would have loved to play more of her in a real life situation. I think the problem with playing arcade modes and against the computer often is it does damage your how good you are against a real human, because you'll tend to do things that cheese, i.e. beats the computer every time, but no human with half a brain would ever fall for it. So you pick up bad habits. There's my teleport. So yeah, she can teleport in all 4 corners, and you don't know where it's coming from. More often than not, the computer kept falling for the same teleport once you've found the distance. Obviously, against a human, it's a little harder because they don't know which 4 corners you're coming from. If you get the wrong one, and obviously you're in trouble. Come on, Bill, block high. They're high fireballs. Nope. And here I am saying the human tends to be more intelligent, so they don't fall for the same tricks, only for me to get lasered in my face 3 times in a row and do nothing about it. I am glad I can record these Sega Saturn games in reasonably good quality to sort of share these with you guys, because these fighting games, they offer me a lot of fond memories. And it would have been great to sort of play them more against other people. I think, as much as I enjoyed them and played them over and over again, I do wish there was an arcade scene around me, so I could have built up those core skills on this sort of game. I got it with Street Fighter because a lot of my friends played Street Fighter growing up, and some of my family members did, but they kind of grew out of them during this phase, where I never did. And there was just no one was playing these games. You know, just jump over his projectiles. Oh, have I got it? Oh, I finally nailed it! Psy Maelstrom. That's a lovely special move, that is. Yeah, I would have loved to play these in arcades. Maybe I would have had a different, different gaming experience. I definitely would have got competitive over it, and played, the tournament scenes, because I was always looking for them. I could never find them in this area of the country, and I just would have got better. I can hold my own on a lot of these fighting games now that a lot of them are online. I'm always going to be curious of what I might have learned, or what I would have come up with, and how I would have fared. Right, so we're down to the final round between me and Doom here. And again, I don't need to tell you this, you can see it for yourself, but these gorgeous backgrounds, these really detailed sprites, they were just so impressive back in the day, and they just didn't... Although the PlayStation versus Saturn talk will go on for a long time, and everyone will make it more simple than it actually ever was, this game does look. These games do run a lot better and smoother on the Saturn than what they did on the PlayStation. And I got the best of it because I always had them on the Sega Saturn and I just collected them. I loved these games. And what's the interesting thing about Marvel Superheroes as a game is it's based on the Infinity Saga. So, you know, the Infinity Gems and Thanos is the last boss, as you can see here. And it's more relevant now than it ever was back in the day because it literally is following the events of the movies, you know. Although they haven't been turned to dust like they have in the movies, they've all been turned to stone. Yeah, there's 4. And if you look at the background, you'll see Vision and there's some other characters in there, like She-Hulk, and what's that? Scarlet Witch. That was the one I was looking for. They're all in the background if you watch during this fight. And back then, only a handful of people. Well, not I say a handful, but a handful of people I knew anything about what Thanos was and the Infinity Gems saga and that kind of thing. I found out through this game what it was, and then realised it was a comic, you know, a massive comic event. And I knew no one in the UK who knew anything about it. Obviously, a lot bigger in America. Comics always have been, but I love the way I can just get behind characters. I think they took that away from her in the other games. I don't think she's got that kick forward roll. But anyway, there goes Vision at the bottom left. And you know, people wouldn't know who these characters were when I was growing up. They're just random, funny, coloured comic book heroes that just don't look quite right. You know, they look very cartoony, comic-y. But now, people, you know, they're like pop culture icons. So this game is more relevant now than it ever has been in the past. And if they re-released it or redid it, it would, you know, it's got the potential to be really, really popular. Although saying that, no one liked Marvel Infinite, did they? I suppose that's kind of what they did, but they didn't quite get that right, I suppose. But no, I just find it funny that you know, something that is old, you know, it's got what, 25 years old, maybe a bit more. Maybe using those Infinity Gems as if they're nothing. You know, Thanos is now, you know, very popular in every. Caught right on the top of his reality gem walls. You know, he's very popular, and he's, you know, using things that people now know exactly what they are and what they represent. Whereas I think a lot of people growing up with me would probably say the Infinity Gems were rip-offs of Chaos Emeralds back then. That's funny how just that all works. Although Psylocke clearly wasn't in the movie, which is a shame. Probably just due to how difficult it is to get her history right. I think she'd be, if they ever brought her into the Marvel movies, I think what they'd have to do is just sort of rewrite a brand new history for her. I think the movies is a good opportunity to do that. Maybe they'll do that with the X-Men. Come on, Thanos, give it up. Oh, there's the big walls of reality. He does have the bubbles on this as well. That's actually from the comic book. That a lot of people I don't think got that in the movie. The bubble thing. That was actually in the comic books. I didn't have any gems, so I didn't get any specials. Yeah, I used to play this over and over again to get the top scores, like I said. So using gems, you have to like knock the gems out of Thanos to get the highest scores on this, which is very difficult to do because you've got to do counter hits and stuff like that. I was really annoyed when I used to play this because I really liked Thor from the comics when I was growing up, and you couldn't play him. And then when they finally released Thor in the Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I didn't really like how he played at all, so that was a bit disappointing. And I guess this is another thing. Generally when I chose any other character, Thanos would play so defensively, it would be really difficult to break him down, and you just leave yourself open. Whereas with Psylocke, because, yeah, well, saying that. Am I dazed? No. Psylocke could react so quickly and get in so fast that you could, you know, actually break down his rock hard defense. And there's a perfect example of the teleport. You just doesn't know how to block it, especially if you come down on their head. So there we go. Psylocke collects all the Infinity Gems and reverses the snap, which again no one knew what it was back then. Restores people from statues rather than dust, which is one of the other changes. Can't actually remember what this ending is. I used to love these. Actually, this was good back in the days when you actually got extended artwork of your characters. These big bold pictures. We were happy with this, although they were all over and done with far too quickly. Ah, there you go. The rest of the X-Men characters, because Psylocke was originally in the game before this, which was Children of the Atom, which was just like an X-Men fighting game, and they took a few characters out. Psylocke was the only one who made it over. Oh no, and Wolverine actually. Wolverine was in it. There they are. There's the X-Men Children of the Atom cast. Psylocke and Wolverine made it over from that game, which is probably more of a result of using past assets, which Capcom were a little guilty of, rather than making and drawing new characters. But still, awesome to have, to see those characters from the previous game. And that was it. So, it was a fun little game. It's definitely like a training program, for me to get into these other franchises. And I've sped this up because these credits take ages. But yeah, if it wasn't for this game, I would have never been as good straight out of the gate of the Versus series. So I will always look back at this game and appreciate it for that. And I played it over and over again to get those high scores, like I said. But I did pick up some bad habits that took a very long time to untrain. So when you're picking up a new fighter, don't always rely on arcade mode to give you what you need to beat other people, because you just won't get on that well. And that's it. This was Bill from Pop Culture Pause Screen. Hopefully you learned a few things about Psylocke here in this great game that started it all in the Versus series for me. If you want to see more from me and my channel, just stick around for the continue screen coming up and click one of the videos before the timer reaches 0. Thanks for watching. Hopefully see you next time. Catch you later.